Good morning. I'm former Secretary Edwin Lacierda from Pinoy's Administration.
Masantos siya kapusanod si kayo namin, na imbag nga bigat tayo amin apo. Magandang morning, Pilipinas! Nani Agsalud Braganza po, President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's Administration.
And we are
The Spokes!
From the Palace Halls to our group chats now,
We'll be giving you conversations that will make you think and assess.
so that you could come up with your own personal opinion. Noted by the spokes today, the government has completed 3 chartered repatriation flights from the Middle East, bringing home over 2,000 OFWs.
Wow.
So nakatatlo na tayo.
Nakatatlo na.
Mabuti, medyo hindi restricted yung airspace doon.
Yes, but we should also remember, Iran is no Venezuela. This is not a 24-hour war, and it's almost a month after this war started. So ang tanong lang dito, gaano katagal tong gerang to? So, and that will impact on not just the repatriation, di ba? But on the safety of Filipinos doon po sa Middle East.
Remember na, ikaw ba kasama ko nung interview si Everdon, si Gov Ben?
Ang hirap kasi sa'yo, nagsusolo plate ka minsan, iniiwan mo ko.
Si Yusek Rasul, ang pondo lang doon is 2.7 billion. 1% lang yata itong na-repatriate natin. Meron pang gustong umuwi.
O kasi at 2.4 million, at 10%, that's 240,000. So in other words, at 20%, that's 400,000. So ang tanong, gaano kahaba ang PC ng ating gobyerno to address this problem? The other problem is, anong magiging trabaho ng mga uwing Pilipino? At pangatlo, yung iba ayaw umuwi dahil wala rin naman trabaho sa Pilipinas. So they'll take the risk.
Correct.
Of being in the Middle East. So that's the situation we're having right now.
Pero nonetheless, I think the government should really be prepared or at least anticipate any eventual repatriation if in case the war gets worse, becomes worse.
You know, so far I have not seen any declaration from the government na humingi siya ng either emergency powers because to address this economic problem. Kasi what we experienced before, emergency powers to address a political problem. But this is more of economic rather than political. But if it becomes a major economic problem, it will impact on the political problem.
Wag sana.
Of this country. Wag po sana, wag po sana.
Malaking. In fact, the remittances will also be affected.
Yung pa.
Which is number one income generating for our country.
Yes. And the bulk of the repatriation, malaki rin yun ang gagaling sa Middle East.
Correct.
Di ba?
Kaya,
considering the number of Filipinos there. So, malaki yun. Yun lang ang magiging problema dito.
Yan lang ating, every time there's a problem in the Middle East, our first question is the safety of our Filipino OFWs. So, talagang kailangan alagaan sila.
Sabi nga nila, mad itong gerang to mutually assured destruction. Ang habol ng Amerika to control the oil at magbago yung gobyerno. Ang habol ng Israel, magbago yung gobyerno ng Iran at wala siya nuclear power. Ang ginagawa ng Iran, guluhin ko yung buong mundo. Di ba? Maramdaman niyo yung epekto nito and to pressure other countries not to support the war. So far, Iran is succeeding, ha?
Ang kumikita ngayon, Russia, sa oil nila,
Yes.
tinanggal yung tariff. Pati si Iran, tatanggalin din ni President Trump yung tariff. So,
At saka si Aileen.
at sa si Eileen.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, kita mo yung daan ngayon?
Malinis, boss.
Malinis, talaga.
Malinis yung daan ngayon. So mukhang may carpooling o may nervyos sa pagbili ng gasolina. May nakita nga akong tumaob na kotse doon sa isang gasolinahan. Inatake sa taas ng presyo ng gasolina. Tapos, yung presyo naman ng gasolina, sa sobrang taas, bumigat, natumba. Inatake rin yung lalagyan ng presyo ng gasolina. So, that's it. No. But kidding aside, what we do not want to see, if this problem worsens, diba, isa senaryo na magkagulo sa kalsada.
Pero,
That's the problem we should avoid.
pero alam mo, next week, Semana Santa na eh. May
Yes.
14 stations of the cross, gas station, lahat ng mga 14 stations of the cross.
Okay. Doon na lang tayo umikot. Di ba? Pwede. Pwede yun. Ayos, ha?
Okay, pero...
Okay. Sorry po, hindi ho namin pinagtatawanan yung problema ng Pilipinas. And we wish this government, the administration of President Marcos, to succeed in addressing this major
But
problem.
you know, it's always a trait of Filipinos that they find humor in any situation. No matter how difficult, there's
Yes.
always humor. And that makes us adaptable to a certain degree.
Resilience.
And you're correct, no? Huwag mo sabihin niya, magagalit ang mga tao. But it shows that our adaptability to any situation. But we don't hope no, na parati, panay-parati may problema ang ating bayan.
Yes. Anyway, also noted by the spokes, the Department of Agriculture has started distributing 5,000 pesos fuel subsidy to farmers with the additional release of additional 50 million.
Ayun. Ano mo yan? Advocacy mo yan.
Oo nga, talipapa po, murang gulay, murang bilihin. Pero sabi nga natin, kukulangin din to eh. Di ba? Pero di ba yung farm to market road, 54 billion nasa DA,
Oh.
baka mas magandang yun ang gamiting ayuda. Di ba? Para sa ating mga ang sabi nga po yung gobyerno naman ang magsakripisyo para sa taong bayan. Di ba? Politika ng tiyan tong problema to eh. Huwag naman sana politika lang ng mga politiko yung papansinin natin. Yun lang naman.
Sa bagay, siguro they're looking at if the situation gets worse, maybe that's one of the options that they will take. No?
Oo, yung mga unfunded. Pondohan nyo yung mga unfunded na budget, di ba? At ilipat. No, but again, kidding aside, ito po politika ng tiyan. You want to avoid a situation where the people, di ba, will not only demand, di ba, yung pagkain para sa pamilya nila, but they will force their way to get those goods to feed their families. Ang unang epekto ito para sa akin, tuition fee. Hindi lang presyo ng bilihin to, pamasahe ng mga anak natin pumapasok, pagkain sa eskwela, yun ang impact nito eh. Kaya minsan yung mga OFW, kaya nga nandun sila, para gumanda ang kita, tapos uuwi rito, and they will be facing the same problems. And those Filipinos in the Philippines will be faced with the same problems. And regardless of your economic status, may tama sa iyo to. May tama sa atin lahat ito.
Everybody gets affected, but unfortunately, those in the lower rank are more affected kasi nga, this is a kitchen table issue.
Yes.
Kaya ang sinasabi nga, some of the farmers are no longer planting kasi tumaas na rin ang cost of production.
That is very true. No, makwento ko lang po, we monitor the prices of agricultural commodities every day. At ang basihan ho namin yung balintawak. We are selling food lesser than balintawak by almost 20%. Pero yung presyo yung presyo sa pinanggagalingan, yung farmer nagtitiis pa eh. It's the transportation cost that impacts most doon sa presyo ng pagkain natin.
Pero dito sa NLEX, I heard na kapag food transport ka, in fact, binaba nila yung presyo sa toll eh. Pag food transport,
Yes.
which is a good measure by, I think MVP yata yung NLEX eh.
And yung isa siguro is we allow the trucks, tanggalin natin yung ban sa kanila. If ang produktong dinadala sa Manila, pagkain. Di ba? Yun lang, pag-aralan sana ng gobyerno yon. Well, if they can do that, malaking bagay yon para bumaba yung presyo ng pagkain.
At least the government has initially allocated 100 million emergency support to farmers to stabilize food supply. I hope kaya yung pondong yan. Ano?
Ito naman ata ang tinitignan nila yung mga gumagamit ng equipment na nangangailangan ng gasolina. But at the end of the day, the other problem here kasi is we import most of those kailangan ng mga farmers. When we import it, ibig sabihin, the price is dictated not by us, but by where it's coming from. So, yun ang kailangang ma-foresee ng gobyerno. Because the longer this war continues, hindi bababa yung presyo eh. Hindi bababa yung presyo. And the bigger problem is, yung ganti ng Iran sa mga kapwa niya Arabo, di ba, is they're now hitting yung mga oil facilities, yung mga refining plants.
Yan din ang gagawin ni Trump.
Nag-threaten siya. We will start hitting, sabi niya, yung mga facilities, basic facilities ng Iran. Ang sagot ng Iran, pag ginawa niyo yan, bobombahin din namin yung source ng kuryente niyo, yung source ng tubig niyo. And surprisingly, yung threat ng Iran na maglalabas kami ng mga bagong armas namin, lumalabas na hindi lumabas in the last 3 weeks.
Ito yung mga sinasabi mga proxy groups ni Iran like the Hezbollah, the Hamas, and all the satellite states of Iran.
Now that's coming out. Ang problema ng Israel at saka Amerika, they cannot put boots on the ground.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But they're preparing already.
Pero ang sabi rin ng isang bansa kasi na European, yeah, but those should be Iranian boots. So hopefully, sorry, my mistake. Umaasa sila, naaalsa yung taong bayan ng Iran. Di ba? Yun lang yung inaasahan nila. Because without that, pag maraming namatay na sundalo, regardless of where it's coming from, except Iran, aalsa rin yung mga pinanggalingan ng mga sundalong yun. So,
I don't know the problem of the plan of the President Trump. He's expecting the Iranians to rebel, but that's a variable that they can't control. Hindi nila kontrolado yan. So, I don't know why he went to war without making sure that all the variables are at least lamang siya. No? But in any event, let's hope that the war will not get any worse for us Filipinos.
The shorter na yung gera, the faster na makapag-rehabilitate yung mga Middle Eastern countries. Yun lang. So sana mag-stabilize yung oil supply, but we don't expect that in the soonest possible time.
Anyway, these are the headlines noted by the spokes today. We'll have former Presidential Advisor for Political Affairs, Secretary Gabriel Claudio, when the spokes return after this short break. And the spokes is back. The impact of the Middle East conflict is felt in the streets of Manila. Business has slowed down, prices of commodities have gone up. What can the government do to address the fuel crisis? And how do these policies intersect with other crises like flood control, agriculture, and public trust? Joining us is former Presidential Advisor for Political Affairs, Secretary Gabriel Claudio.
Welcome back, Manong Gab. Panay tawag ko sa'yo kahapon, di ka sumasagot ha.
Hindi, kausap ko naman yung assistant niyo eh.
Babae kasi.
Hindi, akala ko nga lalaki eh. Kaya sumugot ka
Ano
gano'n.
so grabe to si Nani, nanlalaglag talaga.
Oo, talaga. Yun ang sinasabi ko, reservation ko magpunta rito. Malakas ang alaskahan talaga rito eh.
Alaskador din yan eh.
But,
Pero, let me thank you for having me this
Welcome
morning.
back. Welcome back.
Maski napakaaga nitong programa ninyo.
Ayun, nang-Alaska din, no? Oo nga eh. Alam mo, parang kami lang eh. Kung makabawi ito.
Gabi, you're a political advisor, no? In a situation like this, let's set aside first. There are already economic prescriptions being provided, but as a political advisor to the president, how would you look at the given crisis? If you are situated in government right now, how would you look at what are the factors that you need to make sure that everything is addressed before so that will prevent chaos?
Una, tingin ko, on the part of the public, tsaka which will include the opposition, itemper natin siguro yung criticism sa gobyerno. No? Kasi this is a very difficult situation. Hindi naman ginusto ng pamahalaan ito, hindi ginusto ng Pilipino ito, nangyari ito. And hindi lang tayo, marami sa mga bansa, hindi handa sa ganitong situation na ito. No? Nobody really thought this was going to happen, and nobody thought it was going to protract this long. No? So let's temper our expectations. Let's temper our criticisms of what the government is doing. Tingin ko naman na government is doing its best to be able to cope with the situation. Napakahirap na situation na ito, no?
Can you give an assessment right now of so far what the government has done and how do you evaluate it?
Ito, I'm trying to be objective about it, pero nakikita ko naman yun, lahat ng mga elemento na kailangan i-put in place, no, para tugunan ng ating pamahalaan yung situation na to. I think they're being done, no. Una, yung repatriation ng mga Filipino, mga OFWs, no. Una-una talaga yung safety, yung kaligtasan ng mga Pilipino abroad, lalo no sa affected areas. And nakatatlong na yata na repatriation flights coming back home. And then nandiyan yung panukala ng suspension of the excise tax, no? Para makontrol naman, matigate yung increase ng fuel prices dito. And then nandyan yung mga ayuda para and fuel subsidies para sa mga affected sectors, lalo yung agriculture at saka transport sector. And then ito, unang-unang isinagawa ng pamahalaan, magbigay ng babala sa publiko, no? Lalo sa mga traders, sa mga ngalakal, no? Not to take advantage of the situation na to, no? And then calling on the public in general to let it support. Meron pa dyan, merong 4-day work week, no?
Yes.
Kailangan talaga magtulong-tulong. The public itself has to step up kailangan tumulong talaga.
question na po.
Ako na magtatanong sa inyo.
Ayoko.
Hindi, ako magtatanong. Kasi kayong dalawa, you're part of the GMA cabinet.
Kayong
Ano naman kinalaman naman dyan?
No, but I just, because
Yeah.
they would like to see how the cabinet respond to a crisis. So in your case, in your situation at that time, kung may crisis kayo, how do you handle that? Nagpapatawag ba si Presidente Arroyo? Can you just walk us through how you handle the
Ang
crisis?
kaswertehan lang, nung ang pagkakaiba siguro, no, nung administration ni GM, walang ganitong global crisis na nangyari.
Hindi siya tinamaan ng ito.
But in any ordinary crisis, paano kayo nag-aano?
Again, I was saying it a while ago, di ba? Normally dito, yung gobyerno, emergency powers, political crisis. This is economic. Siguro ang isang advantage ni ma'am, economist eh.
Right.
Dating DTI.
nga pala.
Dating DTI. So immediately ang order calls on the DTI to monitor prices sa mga palengke. Calls on the local government to monitor the prices. That announcement I have not heard. Or hindi ko lang nabasa.
Ito naman ang, this is a source of confidence naman. I think the cabinet of President Marcos now is replete with talent, no? When it comes to managing the economy, especially in crisis situations like this. Nandiyan si Secretary Decgo, no?
Yeah.
Si the
Frederick
Executive
Goyon.
Secretary himself is
Ralph
a
Recto.
good finance man, no? Si Ralph Recto. Parang hindi tayo kukulangan dyan sa aspetong yan, no? And I think there are enough advisors within the cabinet to be able to deal with the situation, to analyze and assess the situation properly, and be able to advise the president accordingly.
So how do you balance? Kasi the economics, sometimes they will force, let's not save on taxes kasi we will lose our public finances. At the same time, the political will say, hindi, kailangan mo tulungan niya, dapat tayo magbigay ng... How do you balance the interest?
Well, ito, may kasamang dasal itong nangyayari ngayon, no? Yung inaasahan natin, what else can we do, no? Inaasahan natin hindi magtagal itong crisis na ito. Kasi, obviously, yung binibigay natin mga ayuda, binibigay nating subsidy, pati itong suspension of excise tax ng, yung excise tax, suspension of excise tax will cost the government from May to December this year. It's going to cost the government 136 billion pesos.
Hindi, kaya sabi nga ni
in lost
Government,
revenues, no?
Hindi, kaya sabi nga ni Government Petilla, dapat targeted yung subsidy. So, for example, here's a clear example. Paano mo babalansin yung interest ng riding public na majority sumasakay, di ba? Going to work or going to school. Versus the interest of the transportation sector, the buses, the jeeps, and the tricycles. Kasi wala pang announcement ng fare hike. Kasi binabalansin malamang yung interest. But at the same time, may napanood po ako na interview ng isang jeepney driver. Ang kinita ko lang po sa araw na to, neto, after all the expenses, 56 pesos.
Alam mo, Nani?
So,
alam mo, very, very interesting, ha? Nanonood ako ng news kagabi. No? And this was on
Bilyonaryo to,
channel.
ba't agenda, di ba, Nani?
Huwag ka magkamali ng TV station dito. ha?
Merong mungkahi, merong
mabibip ka.
panukala galing sa piston yata and pasang Mazda, no? Ang apektado dito talaga yung mga drivers sa libawa, yung mga motorists ng ganyan. Pero sa public sector, yung namamasada ng jeep, namamasada ng taxi, ganyan-ganyan. They are based at the local level, sa mga LGUs, ganyan. Bakit hindi tumulong yung mga local government officials? Lalo na yung mga congressman.
Like how do they help?
Meron silang proposal na, although hindi pa na-flesh out ito, no? Pero I think it makes sense, eh. Yung bakit hindi na tumulong yung mga congressman halimbawa, gamitin nila yung pondo nila, gamitin nila yung kakayahan nila para mag-service contracting. Makipag-usap din sa mga jeepney drivers, hati tayo sa di ba? Hatian namin kayo para yung mapanatili yung fare, yung mga binabayad ng mga pasahero, ganyan. Or makapagbigay pa ka ng libreng serbisyo sa mga
Let me put numbers into what you're saying, Manong Gaba.
Dagdag ko lang. Tapos very relevant na sa mga
Pagbigyan mo
congressman.
muna ang guest. Ano ka ba?
Very relevant din sa mga
Kaya ba
congressman.
nagsasalta, hindi makasingit?
Hindi, kaya nga daw. Sino pa nag-interview dito?
Ako co-host, ako yung guest host dito.
Hindi, buti pa ako nung magtanong.
Palitay ko po. Oo nga.
Hindi, very interesting ito. Kasi, alam mo, lalo na nanggaling tayo sa diskusyon at mga investigation tungkol sa mga flood control projects, tinamaan ng malaki dito yung mga congressman. I think basang-basa ang medyo nabasa to a very, very large extent yung reputation ng mga congressman. Ito, paano para makabawi Marami silang kakayahan, marami silang savings. Ito, may mungkahi dito ngayon, bakit hindi mag-service contracting? Makipag-usap sa mga jeepney owners, jeepney drivers, bayaran namin kalahati halimbawa o a certain percent ng gastos ninyo para mabigay ng ayuda sa mga
Tanong ko lang po, Manong Gabi. Now, let me cut you short. No. Kasi
It's okay, it's okay.
Yes, please do, please
Thank you very much. I love you too. So, saan manggagaling yung itutulong ng congressman? Sa sarili niyang bulsa o sa pondo niya? Kasi, technically, natanggal yung ayuda sa kamay nila
Duda ka bang pwede manggalit sa bulsa ng congressman
Hindi,
yan?
boss, kasi ganito, politika ng tiyan ng ordinaryong pamilyang Pilipino at saka politika ng bulsa ng politiko.
Siyempre, talo yung pangalawa.
No, again, let me put numbers into what Manong Gabi was saying a while ago. There are an estimated 200,000 jeepneys in Metro Manila. There is an estimated 137,000 tricycle drivers in Metro Manila. That alone is almost half a million.
337 na.
Yun na yun, di ba? Then, isama mo na yung mga nagdi-deliver ng pagkain.
Bilangin mo ngayon, ilan ang mga congressman, ilan yung mga konsihal, ilan ang mga vice mayors, ilan mga mayors in Metro Manila. Hindi ba pwede paghati-hatian yan?
But they're
Service limiting.
Naging guest po namin si Mayor Escorito. Gumagalaw na sila. Pinatawag na nga sila ng palasyo para bigyan ng...
Pero how about yung mga congressman?
ng aluya. Well, that's a different story. But ako, going back to what you're saying, Manong Gab, 54 billion yung farm-to-market road na nasa Department of Agriculture. Can that be converted into ayuda for the people? At hindi lang Metro Manila. We're talking of a national scale. 120 million Filipinos, 20 million families. Tanggalin mo yung percentage ng middle income pataas. Di ba? You're talking of about 30%. So, 6 million yun The balance is still big. So, look, I'm not against ayuda, to be fair and honest about it. This is a war we cannot control. Yung mga tinitignan ng gobyerno na solusyon is excise tax. Naging guest natin dito si Governor Petilla, former DOA Secretary. Sabi niya, ayaw ko nga tanggalin yan Kumita gobyerno dyan, yung kinita ng gobyerno, ibibigay natin sa taong bayan. My problem is, di ba?
Limitado talaga.
Limitado talaga. Pangalawa, yung reserve, walang mailabas na langis yung gobyerno Kasi most of our oil reserves are in the hands of the private sector.
Kaya yung, alam mo, very, very reasonable, very legitimate ang question mo. That, palagay ko walang makakasugot ng diretso ngayon yan. Hanggang kailan kakayanin ng gobyerno yung kabibigay ng ayuda, kabibigay ng subsidy, no? Kaya ipagdasal natin, hindi magtagal itong gerang ito Nandiyan ang kasagutan yan
Alam mo, I saw on Facebook, there is a gas station that in fact, instead of increasing the price, they lowered by 5 pesos. PG ang pangalan, Petrogason. And they identify, so if that small company, which in terms of economies of scale, cannot compete with Petron, was able to manage to lower their prices.
May nakita pa nga ako sa Facebook sa mga gasoline station, imbis na ginagamit yung bomba ng yung gas, gano'n.
Hiringgilya na lang. Syringe na lang. No. In fairness to the business sector, some of the major establishments are in partnership with several banks that when you use their debit or credit card, depende sa tatak, di ba? You get a 3 peso, 7 peso discount. So, may mga ganong programa ito initiative ng private sector to. So, ano naman kaya yung pwedeng initiative ng gobyerno that would give discounts? Di ba? To the transportation sector para makahinga naman ng maayos yung riding public. Therefore, makahinga ng maayos yung mga magulang, lolo at lola na sumusustento sa pamilya nila.
Well, isang paraan siguro, naisip ko lang, halimbawa, kung yung pag-uusapan yung carpooling, pag makita ng mga gasoline stations sa Limawa na ang sakay ng kotse higit sa 2 o 3, baka pwedeng bigyan ng diskwento sa gasoline stations, di ba? I think there can be some formula, some creative approaches to this. Pero ang importante talaga, makita natin na merong response ang publiko. Merong cooperation ng publiko.
At may cooperation ng
Alam mo,
publiko.
can I just say
Kailangan nag-uusap tayo, may dialogue talaga.
Alam mo, we've been focused on the public transport, no? But, after the economic boom in the 2016 and below, after that, we purchased, a lot of the private sector has purchased a number of cars because of our credit ratings. Ang daming bumili. But we're not even talking about the private owners kasi sila rin. So some of them,
May aray din.
may aray din. In fact, they're responding very well. Like, kumunti ang traffic sa nagka-carpooling. These are behavioral changes which are good for the country. But ano ang ayuda rin natin dito sa mga, hindi naman lahat na may kotse, mayayaman eh. Sila ang may tama. And sana kung, I wish our public transport is very efficient, but it's not. So therefore,
Maswerte nga Sec Edwin yung ngayon lumalaganap yung yung gamit ng hybrid vehicles, no. Napakalaking bagay niyan, no. Ang mga gumagamit ng mga coaching fed on using completely gas. Talagang there is a great deal of anxiety on their part, no. Pero yung mga mapalad na nakabili ng
tinatawag ka na ni GMA, ano siya pinagsasabi ko siya?
Hello, ma'am. Nagkamali ba ako? Sinani ho may sala.
Hindi, alam mo, speaking of GMA, nabanggit mo tuloy eh. Napag-uusapan tuloy sa Kongreso, no? Sino bang, una kasi, yung may chismis na magkakaroon ng pagbabago sa speakership, yung ganyan. May chismis kung sino yung pwedeng maging running mate ni Sara Duterte. And invariably, lumalabas ang pangalan ng mga kaibigan natin, pati ng dating boss natin, si GMA. By the way, I've not spoken to President GMA about any of this, no? Pero yan, lumalabas yung mga ganyang usap. Ganyang usap. No. The last time nag-usap kami ni President GMA, nagkaroon ng lunch nung Chinese New Year. Pero we were talking about social, it was a social gathering more than anything else. No?
Question lang. It's always a question of, you've mentioned si Mama, no? In times like this, we always talk of pump priming the local economy.
Can I just interrupt the whole? This is a live show because apparently there's a mistake in YouTube, so in social media. Kala nila March 20. This is live po. Hindi ito replay. So the whole discussion is live as we speak.
Walang editing ito, ah.
Ang dami naman bashing kasi ang gulo ng Braganza na yon, kung manggulo.
Ganun ba? Di pwede ka namang tumakbong senator.
Ganun ba yun? Manggugulo ako lalo. No, but seriously, the question was, how do you pump prime the economy para mag-stabilize yung mga presyo? So, should it be infrastructure or will the Ayuda be good enough or incentives para magbalanse lang yung interest ng bawat isa?
Yun nga, mahirap yung situation na yan, yung question na yan. Kasi talaga, palagay ko, hindi napaghandaan ito, no? And even before this crisis started, natigil na konti yung hindi ng konti, na malaki. Because of the investigations on the flood control project, natigil o bumagal yung activities ng gobyerno sa infrastructure, no? Because of the anomalies. Tapos nangyari pa ito ngayon, no? So it lessens the capability of government to be aggressive on the area of infrastructure, no?
Let me ask you one thing. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how would you rate the government's efforts since the Middle East war started on February 28? But before you answer that, the spokes will take a break. Return after the short break.
Okay lang, pag-isipan ko yan.
The Spokes is back, still with Sec Gabriel Claudio. Our hanging question, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how would you rate the government's effort since the Middle East war started on February 28, Manong Gab?
Okay, I try to be as objective as I can, no? Tingin ko at least 7 or maybe even 8. Kasi lahat ng pwedeng gawin, all that is humanly possible on the part of government to be able to cope with the situation, to be able to address the crisis. Parang ginagawa naman.
So by 8 you're saying...
Nasabi ko nga, no, yung unang-una talaga basic dito, yung protection ng OFWs, mga Filipinos living or working in the affected areas. No? Importante sa kanila, mapangalagaan ng kanilang kaligtasan at maiuwi rito kung kinakailangan. No? And I think that has been done rather smoothly. Nakatatlong repatriation trips na. No? And then, mabilis naman ang response in terms of being able to call on Congress to suspend the excise tax, no. Kaya lang again may ano yan, may kapalit yan, yung that's going to lessen the revenues and the capabilities of government to raise the necessary
But we can always
income.
borrow anyway. I mean, worst comes to
right.
our debt to
Tapos nandyan
GDP
yung
is
mga
not bad.
ayuda, nandyan yung mga subsidies, nandyan yung yung conservation schemes like ordering or urging the public and the private sector to go into 4-day work weeks. No?
Yes.
So lahat palagi ko ginagawa. And very importantly, recently si Pangulong Marcos has been able to using his skills in the skills and the capability of government to for diplomatic purposes, have been able to get in touch with friendly oil-producing countries to be able to source our oil
Fuel
requirements from areas, from countries outside the Middle East. No, Lord knows that as much as 90 to 96% of our oil requirements are dependent on
The spot market.
on sources abroad. No?
Yeah.
So and providentially, mabuti naman di ba, only 2 months ago, nag-announce na there has been a new oil field find in discovery
Malampaya.
in Malampaya. Kailangan
Oil,
Natural gas. It's natural gas.
natural gas. Oo, no. Kailangan bilisan ang with urgency to develop yung capability niyan para
So
maggamit
8 is a good number, no? 8 is a good number.
Question lang po. And to clarify lang, hindi ma-clarify, to add to the conversation. 900 Filipinos on their own went back to the Philippines.
So far.
On their own, so far. So, initiative nila yun di ba? Pangalawa, are you aware of any bilateral agreement between the Philippines and oil-producing countries? Like Brunei, for example, na meron tayong bilateral agreement that in case of emergency, we can get from Brunei. I'm not sure if we have such an agreement.
Meron ang napangalanan ng mga countries na kausap na ng ating pamahalaan, nandiyan ang Thailand, Brunei, India, Japan, and China. No?
When it comes to purchase of oil, or
Yes, as an alternative, hindi magiging sapat yan, obviously, no? Kasi karamihan talaga nanggagaling sa
But Japan and
sa
China
Middle
are
East,
not oil producing.
and they're
In
not
fact,
oil
they-
producing?
Meron silang
Reserves.
pwedeng reserve na pwedeng ipamahagi sa atin,
Okay.
no? And the president reportedly has been in touch with them, and mukhang successful naman yung usapan. They will be able to supply a certain degree, a certain amount of our needs.
But again, let me point this out. Depende sa haba ng gyerang ito. At ano ang impact ng gyerang to sa buong Middle East at saka yung Strait of Hormuz. Kasi China is oil dependent, Japan is oil dependent, South Korea is oil dependent. Di ba? These are the three major users of oil, at least within the ASEAN ambit
Yun nga,
or
Sec,
Asian ambit.
nakakatakot talaga yung situation na yan. I think na-underestimate ni President Trump yung yung ikahaba nitong conflict na ito at saka yung kakayahan ng Iran na rumes back, no? So,
Yes.
matakin mo, after more than 1 month, talagang
Almost a month,
continuous bombing ng ginagawa ng Israel at saka US on facilities in the many areas of Iran and Tehran, hanggang ngayon, nakakabawi pa sila ng mga missiles, yung mga drones.
In a related question regarding what Manong Gabi just said, if China, if North Korea sees the weakening of America, di ba? Anong tansya mo, Manong, as a political advisor? Will you warn your president of a possibility of China going after Taiwan and North Korea going after South Korea? Because that will really directly impact on the Philippines.
I can answer that.
Yes.
Sige, ikaw na muna.
Basically, the U.S. has a policy of a two-war strategy. Since the Cold War, they're prepared for a two-war situation. It's not a question of whether it's two war. If one's limited, you can even if this is a limited war, they can engage in two wars. The problem is the intensity of the two wars.
Yes.
If the intensity is strong, if China goes on, not a limited war but a full scale, and similarly, if Russia aids Iran, then you have to intensive war, that's a question of the capable. But they are capable of doing.
You know, that's going to be a nightmare situation, having two war fronts
Right.
happening at the same time.
It happened in the
Mabuti
Second
lang
World
hindi
War.
sinasamantala ngayon, no? Pero matagal nang napag-uusapan at matagal nang ina-anticipate and in-speculate, kailan ba lulusubin ng kailan magagalaw talaga ang China sa
Nag-announce
Taiwan,
sila,
no?
next year.
Or
2027.
2027.
When is China going to react to the presence, halimbawa, of EDCAS in
the
the
Philippines,
Philippines, no? Can it be now na abala ang US sa Middle East, no? Mabuti naman, and you know, this is to the credit naman of our neighbors and China. Mukhang hindi naman nasasamantala itong situation.
For the
na ito.
record, the United States Navy has 11 aircraft carriers, so they can launch anywhere. They have more aircraft carriers than all the aircraft carriers of the other countries combined. So they are agile enough to send troops and ordnance to anywhere.
Yun nga nakakatakot ngayon How thousands of American troops have been sent to places near the actual areas of conflict, hindi naman ipapadala ito ngayon para manood lang, para maging optics lang, So nakakatakot yung ang kasunod niyan, actual boots on the ground na ba ito, no? Pag nangyari yan, wow, talagang total warfare na ito, no?
Right.
Question lang po. Apparently at this point, malabo yung ceasefire between Israel, Iran, and the
yata,
US.
hindi.
But on the local front, do you think, should we have a political ceasefire? Para dito naman,
Tayo ceasefire natin on
political ceasefire.
Sinabi niya kanina.
Para ma-address naman, para hindi ma-compound yung problem.
Alam mo,
at disunity
one question
among
that is
Filipinos.
being raised, halimbawa, we are in the middle of a political process. Nandiyan yung impeachment, di ba? Kaya lang, alam natin, nagsimula itong impeachment na ito last year pa di ba? Way before nangyari itong conflict sa Middle East. Ang tanong ngayon, ititigil ba muna natin ito so that the government and the people and the legislature can better focus on the economy, on the impact of the Middle East crisis on the Philippines.
To the credit of the Philippine Congress, at least the House has already passed the excise tax, giving emergency powers to the President, which is also sinugundohan na ng Senado. So obviously, that's something that
Are you saying, Sec Edwin, na dapat ituloy na halimbawa yung whatever political processes
we spoke to Congressman Joel Chua. You cannot be a one-track mind. You have several things, and the impeachment is a constitutional mandate. It calls for accountability. But it doesn't take much time naman.
Alam mo, it's rather unfortunate na nagkasabay ito ngayon, no? Pero as I pointed out, itong impeachment issue ito, nangyari ito way before nangyari.
Hindi kasi na fourth win
Oo. Di sana tapos na ito ngayon di ba? Pero hindi. But the question is, dapat ba i-suspend muna ito?
It's a valid question, yes.
Isa tabi muna ito,
Right.
no? So that people can concentrate better on the economy.
But I think also
and
the Supreme Court
impact
has said, and the rules of the House have said, that you have only 60 days, session days, ang sinabi.
Na para tapusin yung
to resolve the hearing pa. So may timelines. I don't know
Sorry,
if
let me be clarified about it. In the case of the House, do they now have the numbers?
it seems like
Okay.
you only have 105 that you're required to get.
105,
The Justice
106,
Committee,
106.
106 Justice Committee has already 54. So you need 46 plus 6, 52 lang ang kailangan mo.
Tapos, Second Win, you have to look at the momentum of the House now. No? Yung they have been able to determine the sufficiency in form and substance as well as grounds for the impeachment. Pwede pa naman tumigil ang proseso dyan, di ba? And so they're going to be conducting hearings, the actual hearings at the level of the House Committee starting March 25 and at least 2 or 3 more days in April, no?
Right.
Palagi ko hindi dapat itigil ito just because there is war in the Middle East, no? Kasi I think it's going to be unfair to not only to the proponents of the impeachment, but it's going to be unfair also to the respondent, no? Si Vice President Sara Duterte. Whatever happens in the Middle East, whether magtagal ito o hindi, whether matapos yung gera ngayon o hindi, the issues being raised in the impeachment will always be there. And they have to be addressed. They have to be concluded. lalong-lalo na, dahil na pag-uusapan yung 2028, they will definitely have a bearing on what's going to happen in 2028. No?
Yes.
So in fairness to all parties concerned, dapat matapos ito ngayon eh.
No, the reason
Siguro lang dapat tapusin as painlessly and as judiciously and as expeditiously as possible.
Yung painlessly, I doubt that very much. No.
Totoo yan.
The reason I asked that question is, hindi natin, walang definite timetable kasi from House, tapos yung gano'ng katagal yung Senate hearing. In fact, dito impeachment, doon conviction ang hinahabol eh. Tapos ang sinasabi ko lang po kanina, pag nasa gitna ito, ng gyerang ito, kasi this is one war na ayaw natin, wala tayong control. But it impacts greatly on the way of life of Filipinos. So, it's an economic problem which may translate into a political problem. Then you have an impeachment hearing that probably will compound. Yun lang po ang tanong ko.
Hernani, nasabi mo yung no, yung paano mapapabilis itong prosesong ito. Yung
What process yung impeachment?
no, impeachment process.
Basta may rule of law, I'm okay.
One subject of speculation now is whether si Sara Duterte is actually going to participate and to make herself available for the hearings in the House, no? Which start on March 25. Pag hindi sumipot si VP Duterte dyan, obviously, mas mapapabilis ang ano. Parang she has waived her right to refute or to answer the allegations against her, no? And obviously, mas mapapabilis yung decision ng House whether to accept the recommendations of the Justice Committee or the findings of probable cause and maisampa kaagad yung kaso sa Senado, no?
Right.
So, importante talaga na magdesisyon na mabuti si VP Duterte whether makakatulong hindi lang sa kanya, pero sa proseso at saka sa bansa na mag-participate siya dun sa proseso.
So, yes, but on the part of the House naman kasi, apparently may crack din sa majority coalition. With the announcement, yung crack na yun is yung, di ba, nag-announce yung NUP, conscience vote tayo, di ba? Tapos, we don't see new evidences. Well, statement ni Manong Ronnie Puno to. Pero 11 of their members umalis.
Hindi pa. Parang ano eh.
No. Kasi ang tingin ko yung 11 na yon heads different committees in the House. So parang nagpaalam dito muna kami because they want to protect their own political interests by being chairpersons of those committees. So you see a crack.
Pero if they move to the Partido Federal, gobyerno yan eh.
Administration yan.
Talaga, yung move, hindi ba exodus, no? We're talking of 10 out of 40 plus members ng...
Second biggest political party.
Oo. Palagay ko, yung mga ibang members dyan, well, merong may poaching din involved dyan. Nakakasiguro tayo.
Doon ka magaling ng panahon mo. From FBR to GMA. Aminin mo na kasi, Manong.
May dahilan naman. May dahilan. Para makakabuti para sa bansa. So, ito ba talaga, yung makakabuti sa partido, makakabuti sa proseso, makakabuti sa bansa, no? Pero, wala akong duda, talaga merong poaching involved dito.
Yes.
Merong effort on the part of the other political parties to gain in numbers by getting some of the disgruntled or disillusioned or yung mga kinakabahan na members ng NUP to join the Partido Federal, which is more intimately identified with the President and the administration. Palagay ko,
may poaching.
Baka kagagawan din nagkaroon din ng problema because of yung ginawa ng NUP mismo. When they began to hedge on whether to support the impeachment or not.
Yes.
I don't think that is music to the ears of the administration.
Let me just get back to, you're a political strategist, you're a political advisor. We're in a crisis situation which for some is very unsettling, but on the others, it is viewed as an opportunity. What opportunities do you see from this crisis? From whatever side, whether the Duterte side, the Pinklawan side,
politically,
or the...
politically.
Yes.
This is a good time as any for the administration, for the president to show leadership, no? Nung panahon ng pandemic, si President Duterte was able to I think to show that kind of leadership, no. Hindi ko haka-haka yan, hindi ko observation yan. That is born out of the result of the surveys that came out. Nung matapos ang term ni PRRD na hindi pa man talagang tapos yung problema ng pandemic, hindi bumaba yung kanyang numbers eh. In other words, people I think by and large were pretty satisfied with the way the administration was handling the pandemic situation. Ngayon, masusubukan talaga. Malaking pagsubok ito kay President Marcos, no? Na is he able to show the kind of leadership, the kind of determination, the kind of conviction, and the kind of moral suasion sa publiko to be able to deal with the current crisis, no? If he is able to show that and to succeed, this is going to have a very big impact not only on how successful we are in coping with the situation, but the result maybe of the 2028 elections.
Kaya ngayon po tanong ko wala naman two political parties eh. So in other words, the success and failure of the president in this crisis will determine whether coalitions being built or new coalitions will be built based on the administration's strength. Pero pag nag-fail ito, then masisira yung mga koalisyon. So, how do you see that coming out before 2020?
Number one, I think yung publiko naman will be reasonable enough to discern and to realize na itong problemang ito, hindi naman kagagawan ni Marcos ito eh. Hindi naman kagagawan ng administration ito. And lahat ng bansa sa buong mundo apektado rito, no? Pangalawa, I don't think it's going to be reasonable and fair to compare how the president and the vice president are addressing the situation or exerting their leadership, no? Mas exposed talaga ang presidente rito eh, because he is he's on top of the government.
He's in command.
And he all the resources of government are at his disposal.
Let me go to let's start the tough question. I mentioned a while ago that crisis can be opportunities also, but crisis can also be an opportunity for corruption. So if you're in government, how should the administration ensure that it won't happen this time?
Well, una, yung pananamantal sa yung at the first week na nagsimula yung crisis, I think one of the more decisive actions taken by the government was to warn those who are in a position to hoard,
right,
or to be in control of the supply of fuel, na wag manamantala dito sa.
But internally,
sa
I mean,
na to,
flood control was a government, a corruption from within government. So we're looking at corruption within government. How do you ensure that it won't happen again?
Well, kakaiba naman yung situation dito, parang mas mahirap manamantala rito ngayon eh. Kasi mas kitang-kita ng publiko at saka talagang kahindik-hindik.
Sorry.
Lalo na yung coming from the heels of the flood control investigations. And naalala pa ng mga tao yung nangyari sa Farmally.
Correct, exactly. I was going to say that.
Sa pandemic, palagi ko mas pag-iingat naman siguro yung mga taong nasa gobyerno, yung mga taong nasa public sector, who are in a position actually to manipulate the situation, no? Masyado ng garapal, masyadong kahindik-hindik yung pagsamantalahan pa itong situation.
Alam naman natin lahat na pag may krisis, yung mayaman, lalo yung mayaman, yung mahirap, lalo naghihirap. So, how will you advise yung president to make sure, di ba, na mabalanse yung interest ng mayaman at mahirap? Because that's a given reality in this country. At the end of the day, yung mahirap, sa krisis, lalo maghihirap talaga yun. Kasi umaasa sa ayuda eh. Yung mayaman, hindi naman ganun eh. Baka kumita pa nga eh. Di ba? So, what will you advise to the president to balance the interest between the rich and the poor, considering na malaki yung gap between the rich and the poor in the Philippines?
Well, yung etong ginawa in many respects, ginagawa na ng presidente, calling on the private sector to help in whatever way they can. No? They are the owners of many of our industries. Sa transport sector, sa production sector, marketing sector, ganyan. They are in a position to actually mitigate the impact of the oil crisis and the war in the Middle East, no? Wag samantalahin, wag masyadong itaas ang presyo. Halimbawa, kaya lang itong example na to ang tinamaan dito, hindi yung mayayaman talaga.
Si Edwin Lacierda.
Oo. The president has suspended bagamat nag-announce na yung mga government agencies concerned like LTFRB, no? Medyo napahiya sila rito kaya galit na galit yung mga Oo, nag-announce na sila ng ng increase in fair rates, no? Sinuspindi ng presidente 'yan, no? So, marami talaga pwedeng gawin ng presidente para to cushion the impact of the crisis on the public, the ordinary Filipinos.
Alam mo, kulang ng oras. So, kaya habang mahaba ang gera, pwede pa natin kunin si Gabi.
Humahaba ng haba rin yung sagot.
Kaya naman humahaba daw, 60% ng discussion, puro sa kanya.
Sige, pabash mo pa ako. Ganyan talaga yan eh. Si Edwin naman ang tirahan nyo.
Maraming salamat, Secretary Gabriel Claudio.
Yes. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat din sa pagkakataon.
Whether it's managing a global fuel shock, maintaining infrastructure, or navigating political challenges, the question remains, are our leaders acting proactively or just reacting?
And to ordinary Filipino citizens like us, do you share in saving up energy? Do not resort to hoarding or panic buying, and try to help most especially those who are disadvantaged. Because as one analyst puts this crisis, if we run out of fuel and it gets rationed, economy stops, and this may turn out to be even worse than the pandemic. I'm former Secretary Hernani Braganza.
And I'm former Secretary Edwin Lacierda. And we are The Spokes.
Salamat.